The lipstick was Chanel Rouge Allure in Pirate Red. I know because I bought the same shade last Christmas, thinking it might rekindle something in my marriage. Greg never noticed. But there it was, perfectly stamped on the corner of a cream-colored note I found in his jacket pocket. Along with the faint scent of a perfume that wasn't mine. My name is Lydia, and until 5 minutes ago, I was folding laundry like any other Tuesday night. Now I'm standing in our master bedroom, holding evidence of my husband's betrayal between trembling fingers. Mom, have you seen my blue hoodie? Chloe's voice carries up the stairs, yanking me back to reality. Check the dryer, I call back, shoving the note into my pocket. My heart pounds against my ribs as I hear Greg's key in the front door. Honey, I'm home. His voice is cheerful, normal. Like he hasn't just shattered 17 years of marriage with a lipstick-stained secret. I smooth my hands over my jeans and head downstairs. Greg's setting his briefcase down, loosening his tie. He looks exactly the same, distinguished gray at his temples, architect-perfect posture, that smile that still makes something flutter in my chest. Except now I see the slight adjustment of his collar, the way his eyes don't quite meet mine. How was your day? I ask, proud of how steady my voice sounds. Busy. That new downtown project is killing me. He kisses my cheek, and I fight the urge to wipe it away. Tara and I had to stay late reviewing the plans. Tara. Of course it's Tara. Young, ambitious Tara with her perfect suits and sharp heels. I've seen how she looks at him during office parties. Dad, can I borrow the car tonight? Chloe appears, wearing the mysteriously recovered blue hoodie. Study group at Sarah's. Sure, princess. He tosses her the keys without checking with me. Like always. I watch them chat, father and daughter, while my fingers brush against the damning note in my pocket. They look so much alike, same confident stance, same easy charm. Same ability to make me feel invisible in my own home. Actually, I hear myself say, I need to talk to your father about something important. Greg's smile falters for just a fraction of a second. Can it wait? I'm exhausted. No, I say, pulling out the note. It really can't. The color drains from his face as he recognizes what I'm holding. Chloe looks between us, confusion clouding her features. And in that moment, I realize this isn't just about a lipstick stain or a secret note. This is about years of being taken for granted, of disappearing piece by piece. This is about getting even. Greg's excuses spill out like a practiced performance. Too practiced. Each word drives another nail into the coffin of our marriage as Chloe watches, her eyes darting between us like she's tracking a tennis match. It's just a thank you note from a client, Greg says, reaching for the paper. I pull it back. A client who wears Chanel Rouge Allure? My voice sounds foreign to my own ears. Who signs with just the letter T? Chloe steps forward, arms crossed. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Dad works with lots of women. Stay out of this, Chloe. But she's already positioned herself beside Greg, a united front against me. Just like always. Your mother's stressed, Greg says, placing a hand on Chloe's shoulder. She's imagining things that aren't there. I want to scream. Instead, I dial Maggie's number right there in front of them. Tell her about Tara, I say, putting the phone on speaker. Tell her about all those late nights at the office. Greg's face hardens. I'm not doing this in front of our daughter. Why not? You've been doing everything else in front of our daughter. Making me look crazy, making me doubt myself. Dad? Chloe's voice wavers. Who's Tara? Nobody, Greg snaps, then catches himself. Just a colleague. Maggie's voice cuts through the tension. Lydia? What's going on? Tell them about last Thursday, I say to Greg. When you said you were working late but your car was parked outside La Maison. Color drains from his face. He hadn't known I'd seen them, him and Tara, laughing over wine, his hand brushing hers across the table. You followed me? His voice rises with manufactured outrage. See, Chloe? This is what I'm dealing with. I didn't have to follow you. Sarah's mom works there, remember? She saw you. Chloe backs away from both of us, confusion morphing into something darker. I'm going to Sarah's, she announces, grabbing her keys. Chloe, wait, but she's already gone, the door slamming behind her. Greg's charm vanishes like smoke. Happy now? You've upset our daughter. No, I say, surprising myself with my calm. You did that when you decided to screw your assistant. Lydia? Maggie's still on the line. I'm coming over. Greg grabs his keys. I need some air. We'll discuss this when you're thinking rationally. As he leaves, I notice something I missed before, a small smudge of that same red lipstick on his collar. How many other clues had I ignored? How long had I been the fool in my own home? Maggie arrives 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and her lawyer's notepad. Start from the beginning, she says. And this time, we're documenting everything. The silver Audi pulls into the underground parking garage of the Westbrook Hotel at exactly 7:15. I sink lower in my rental car's seat, watching Greg step out in his best charcoal suit. 3 minutes later, Tara emerges from her red Mercedes, wearing a dress that probably costs more than my monthly grocery budget. Maggie's words echo in my head, don't do anything stupid. But watching them disappear into the elevator together, his hand on the small of her back, makes my blood boil. I grab my phone to document the time and date, just like Maggie taught me. A tap on my window nearly stops my heart. Lydia Morrison? An older man peers in, his silver hair neat, his posture straight despite his age. I thought that was you. Do I know you? He smiles sadly. You used to. I'm Evan. Your father. 25 years of absence hit me like a physical blow. You need to leave. I've been trying to find the right moment to approach you. He glances at the hotel entrance. But it seems you're occupied. Gathering evidence for my divorce. The words slip out before I can stop them. History repeating itself, he murmurs. Your mother was doing the same thing when I left. I grip the steering wheel harder. You don't get to talk about Mom. I do, actually. Because what happened between your mother and me might help you now. He pulls out a business card. I'm staying at the Marriott. When you're done here, come find me. There are things you need to know. After he leaves, I sit there shaking, torn between following Greg and confronting the ghost of my past. My phone buzzes, a text from Chloe. Still at Sarah's. Don't wait up. Except I know she's lying because Sarah's mom called earlier, worried because Chloe hasn't been to study group in weeks. Another betrayal, another crack in my family's foundation. I start the car. The hotel can wait. Greg and Tara's affair is already documented, the lipstick, the notes, the photos Maggie's private investigator took. But my father's sudden appearance feels like a sign, a piece of a puzzle I didn't know I was solving. The Marriott's lobby is all marble and soft lighting. Evan stands when he sees me, gesturing to a quiet corner. Your mother wasn't the one having the affair, he says without preamble. I was. With her best friend. She found out, just like you did, and she planned to destroy me. His eyes meet mine. But her revenge cost her everything, including you. What are you talking about? She died thinking she'd won, but all she did was poison herself with hatred. He reaches for my hand. Don't make her mistakes, Lydia. There are better ways to fight back. The doctor's office smells like antiseptic and broken promises. I stare at the prescription in my hand, anxiety medication. Apparently, discovering your husband's affair, confronting your long-lost father, and losing your daughter's trust can manifest as panic attacks. My phone buzzes. Another text from Chloe, going to Dad's hotel. He says you're not well. Hotel. Not apartment. The word hits like a slap. Greg's moved out of his temporary apartment, upgrading to somewhere more suitable for his new life. With her. Mrs. Morrison? The pharmacist calls my name. I almost don't recognize it anymore. Who is Mrs. Morrison now? The dutiful wife? The vengeful woman? The failing mother? Walking to my car, I spot Evans sitting on a bench outside. He's reading my mother's old journal, the one he claims she left him before she died. Following me now? Maggie told me you had an appointment. He closes the journal. Your mother had panic attacks too, near the end. Stop comparing me to her. I'm nothing like. She hired a private investigator, he interrupts. Gathered evidence. Planned to ruin me professionally. Sound familiar? My hands shake as I unlock the car. You deserved it. Maybe. But it destroyed her. The obsession with revenge consumed everything else. He holds out the journal. Read it. See for yourself. At home, I find Chloe packing a suitcase. She freezes when she sees me. Dad says you're stalking him and Tara. Her voice cracks. He's worried about your mental state. Of course he is. Greg's always been brilliant at manipulation. I want to scream, to shake her, to make her see. Instead, I open my mother's journal and read aloud. The satisfaction of destroying him isn't worth losing myself. Or worse, losing my daughter. Chloe pauses at the stairs. What's that? Your grandmother's words. Before she died thinking revenge would heal her. I close the journal. I won't make the same mistake. My phone pings, an email from Maggie with surveillance photos. Greg and Tara entering his hotel. Documentation of their affair, times, dates, locations. Everything I need to destroy him in divorce court. I delete it. Chloe watches me, her suitcase forgotten. Mom? I won't fight him for you, I say. I won't make you choose sides. But I won't let him make me the villain either. She sits on the stairs, uncertainty replacing anger. What will you do? I think about the community center I passed earlier, its sign advertising support groups for women rebuilding their lives. About Evan's warnings. About my mother's regrets. I'm going to save myself, I say. And hope you'll be there to see it. The Phoenix Women's Center smells like coffee and new beginnings. I didn't plan to come here, just followed the sign after another sleepless night. Now I'm sitting in a circle of strangers, clutching styrofoam coffee, listening to stories that mirror my own. The hardest part isn't leaving, a woman named Janet says. It's deciding who you'll become after. The group leader, Liam Parker, catches my eye. He's younger than I expected, with kind eyes that see too much. Lydia, would you like to share? Before I can answer, my phone vibrates. Greg's name flashes on the screen, followed by rapid-fire texts. Chloe told me about the support group. You're embarrassing our family. We need to talk about your behavior. My hands shake so badly I nearly drop the phone. Liam notices, smoothly redirecting the group's attention to another speaker. After the session, he approaches with a business card. We offer legal resources too, he says quietly. And career counseling. I'm not leaving my husband. Aren't you? His gentleness makes it worse. You're here, aren't you? Outside, I find Tara waiting by my car. She's wearing the same shade of lipstick from the note, but it's smeared slightly, her composure cracking. Greg's filing for full custody of Chloe, she says without preamble. He thinks you're unstable. The world tilts sideways. He can't. He can. And he will. She glances at the center's sign. Unless. Unless what? Sign the divorce papers. Give him what he wants. He'll let you keep joint custody. My mother's journal burns in my bag, full of warnings about the price of pride. But there's something in Tara's eyes, fear, maybe. Or guilt. Why are you really here? She touches her smeared lipstick. Because I saw the photos in his phone. The ones before me. The other women. Her laugh is hollow. We're all replaceable to him. Even me. My phone buzzes again. Chloe, Mom, please. Just sign the papers. I don't want to testify. Testify. The word hits like a physical blow. Greg's not just threatening to take my daughter, he's prepared to destroy me in court. I pull out Liam's card, then my mother's journal. 2 paths forward. Revenge or redemption. Destruction or reconstruction. Tell Greg he'll have his answer tomorrow, I tell Tara. She nods, already walking away. But I'm not watching her leave. I'm watching my reflection in the car window, seeing for the first time not Greg's wife or Chloe's mother, but someone else entirely. Someone who's finally ready to fight back, not for revenge, but for survival. Greg's annual architecture gala feels like a funeral in reverse, everyone dressed in their finest. Pretending not to see the corpse of my marriage on display. I shouldn't be here, but Maggie insisted. Own your space, she said. Don't let them write your story. Across the room, Tara laughs at something Greg whispers, her hand possessively on his arm. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. 3 other partners' wives avoid my gaze, their own guilty secrets evident in their stiff shoulders. Mrs. Morrison. Marcus Chen, Greg's boss, appears beside me. Unusual to see you here, given the circumstances. Just supporting the firm, I say, raising my champagne. Like always. His eyes narrow. Greg mentioned you've been unstable lately. Causing scenes at his hotel? Before I can respond, Chloe storms up, face flushed. Mom, what are you doing here? Dad said you promised to stay away. Did he? I watch Greg watching us, his practice concern fooling everyone except me. Like he promised to stay faithful? Don't. Chloe's voice cracks. Just don't. She rushes off toward Greg, who wraps her in a protective embrace. Tara steps back, the perfect understanding mistress, while Marcus shakes his head sadly. My phone buzzes, Evan, don't do anything rash. Remember your mother's mistakes. But I'm already moving, 17 years of silence burning in my throat. The microphone for speeches sits unattended on the small stage. One quick movement and it's in my hand. Ladies and gentlemen. My voice echoes through the ballroom. I'd like to propose a toast. Greg starts forward, but he's too late. To the other women. I raise my glass. Not just Tara, though she's certainly the latest. But Sarah from accounting 5 years ago. Rebecca from the Denver project. Amanda from security appears, Greg's hand signals swift and decisive. As they escort me out, I catch a glimpse of Chloe's face, not angry now, but devastated. Confused. Behind her, Tara's perfect composure cracks as she looks at Greg with new understanding. Outside, the night air hits like a slap. My phone explodes with messages. Maggie, what have you done? Liam, come to the center. Now. Greg, you'll never see Chloe again. Chloe, I hate you. I slide down the building's marble wall, my designer dress catching on rough stone. The satisfaction I expected feels hollow, poisonous. In trying to destroy Greg, I've become exactly what he painted me to be, unstable, vindictive, dangerous. A shadow falls over me. It's Evan, offering his hand. Now, he says quietly, are you ready to hear how your mother's story really ended? Evan's inheritance letter sits on Greg's desk like a loaded gun. $3 million, all mine, provided I walk away from the divorce proceedings immediately. Greg stares at the paper, then at me, his perfect facade cracking. You planned this, he says. You and your father. No. But it's fitting, isn't it? You tried to paint me as unstable to take everything. Now I don't need anything. His laugh is ugly. You really think Chloe will choose you? After that scene at the gala? The door opens. Chloe stands there, still in her school uniform, holding her phone. I found the others, she says quietly. Greg's face pales. What others? The women Mom mentioned. I messaged them on Instagram. Her voice shakes. Amanda told me everything. About the pregnancy. About how you paid. That's enough. Greg moves toward her, but she steps back. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That we wouldn't talk to each other? I watch my daughter transform before my eyes, her innocence burning away like morning frost. Part of me wants to shield her, even now. But she deserves the truth, all of it. Sign the papers, Greg, I say. Joint custody. Equal split of assets. Or everything comes out, not just the affairs, but the money you've been moving through the Panama accounts. His head snaps up. How did you? Maggie's not just my friend. She's also the best forensic accountant in the state. I slide the divorce agreement across his desk. Your choice. Clean break or total destruction. Dad? Chloe's voice is small. Just sign it. Please. Greg looks between us, seeing for the first time how much he's lost. His pen hovers over the paper. You'll regret this, he says. Both of you. No. I think of my mother's journal, of Evan's warnings, of all the women at the Phoenix Center. The only thing I regret is letting you convince me I was worthless. He signs. Each stroke of the pen feels like a key turning in a lock. Chloe moves to my side, not touching, but close. What now? I pull out another document, plans for the Phoenix Center's expansion. $3 million will build a lot of new beginnings. Now we heal, I say. Not for revenge. Not for him. For us. Greg watches us leave, already reaching for his phone, probably calling Tara. But it doesn't matter anymore. His power over us died with that signature, and in its place, something new is growing. Something stronger than revenge. Something like hope. The Phoenix Center's new wing gleams in the morning light. Through the windows, I watch women filing in for today's session, each carrying their own version of my story. Evan stands beside me, both of us reflected in the glass. Your mother would be proud, he says, handling me a worn envelope. She wrote this the day before she died. I never had the courage to give it to you until now. Inside, I find her familiar handwriting. My dearest Lydia. Revenge is a mirror that shows us who we really are. I chose to see only anger in my reflection. I pray you'll see something more. Footsteps behind us, Chloe, arriving early for her volunteer shift. She started counseling teens whose parents are divorcing, turning her pain into purpose. She hugs me briefly, then nods at Evan. Greg's firm lost the downtown project, she says. Tara left him for a position in Seattle. Are you okay with that? She shrugs, but her eyes are clearer now, wiser. He made his choices. We're making ours. The session room fills quickly. I recognize faces, Janet from my first meeting, 3 of Greg's other women who become unlikely allies, even Tara. Sitting quietly in the back before her departure west. Liam catches my eye as I take the podium, his smile encouraging. We're still figuring out what we might become to each other, but there's no rush. Some healing needs time. Welcome, I say to the group. Today we're discussing the difference between revenge and justice. A new woman raises her hand, makeup barely hiding her bruises. How do you choose between them? I touch my mother's letter in my pocket. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you discover that real justice isn't about destroying someone else, it's about refusing to let them destroy you. Chloe squeezes my hand as I step down, whispering, "Mom? I found more of Dad's financial records. Should we?" "No," I say. "Let karma handle Greg. We have better things to build." Through the window, I catch a glimpse of my reflection, not Greg's wife or Chloe's mother or Evan's daughter, but simply myself. The woman who chose to break the cycle, who turned betrayal into foundation stones for something stronger. The session begins, voices rising and falling like waves, each story different but connected. In their faces, I see what my mother couldn't, that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well enough to help others live better. I open my notebook and begin writing, not about the past, but about tomorrow. After all, that's where the real story begins.
The aroma of fresh espresso filled my tiny apartment as I scanned the morning headlines on my laptop. There it was, right on the business page. Isabella's TFAS Sion Nui's aggressive expansion. 30 new locations planned. My sister's smiling face beamed from the article photo, every pixel radiating smug satisfaction. The coffee in my cup suddenly tasted bitter. 1 year ago, that had been my coffee shop. Little Bird Coffee House, the tiny cafe I'd built from nothing. Now it was the flagship store of my sister Emma's rapidly expanding chain, rebranded with pretentious gold signage and overpriced pastries. My phone buzzed, speaking of the devil. "Sarah, darling." Emma's voice dripped honey-coated venom. "Did you see the news? We're bringing sophisticated coffee culture to the masses. Such a shame you never had the vision to see Little Bird's true potential." I bit back a sharp response. "What do you want, Emma?" "Just checking if you'll be at Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner tonight. Though I understand if you can't afford the dress code at Les Cirque anymore." The line went dead before I could respond. I closed my eyes, remembering the day everything changed. 1 year earlier. A coffee subscription service. My father's voice filled the restaurant group's boardroom. "That's your big proposal." I stood before the family board, pointing to my carefully prepared presentation. "It's more than that, Dad. Little Bird has a loyal customer base. By adding digital ordering, specialty roasts, and home delivery." "Absolutely not," Emma interrupted from her seat beside Dad. As CEO of Foster Restaurant Group, she'd spent years methodically taking control of our family's hospitality empire. "We're not investing company resources in your little hobby shop." "Little Bird makes a profit," I countered. "A good one." "These innovations could." "Could what?" Emma laughed. "Compete with actual restaurants? Face it, Sarah, you're running a glorified Starbucks in a prime location that could be generating real revenue." Dad nodded slowly. "Emma has a point. That downtown corner property is too valuable for experiments." "It's not an experiment. I built Little Bird from nothing. Our customer satisfaction scores are irrelevant," Emma cut in smoothly. "Which is why I'm proposing a complete restructuring of our coffee division." My blood ran cold as she distributed folders to the board. "What are you talking about?" "Isabella's Cafes," Emma announced proudly. "A modern, upscale coffee chain that will revolutionize the industry, starting with rebranding our existing location." "You mean my location," I said quietly. "Little Bird is my creation." "Little Bird operates under Foster Restaurant Group's umbrella," Emma reminded me with a predatory smile. "And as CEO, I'm exercising our contractual right to assume direct management of any subsidiary that doesn't meet our growth targets." "Growth targets you deliberately set impossible high," I protested, turning to Dad. "This is wrong, and you know it." But I could see in his eyes that he'd already sided with Emma. He always did. "The board will vote now," Emma declared. "All in favor of accepting my proposal for Isabella's Cafes?" Every hand went up except mine. "Excellent," Emma practically purred. "Sarah, you have 2 options. Stay on as a regional manager under the new brand, or accept a generous severance package." Generous. Right. The amount was deliberately calculated to be just enough to prevent legal challenges, but not enough to actually start over. "You can't just." "I can, and I have." Emma stood, smoothing her designer suit. Really, Sarah, this is for the best. You never have the killer instinct for serious business. Running one quirky little coffee shop? That's more your speed. She paused at the door. Oh, and we'll need you cleared out by Friday. The remodeling cruise starts Monday. I watched them file out, the family board members who'd known me since childhood, none of them meeting my highs. Dad paused briefly. It's business, Sarah, nothing personal. But it was personal. Emma had been gunning for Little Bird ever since it started gaining attention in the local press. My authentic approach to coffee culture, the community we built, the loyal customers, it drove her crazy that I'd succeeded without following her corporate playbook. Walking through Little Bird one last time that Friday, watching my staff hug and cry as they packed up years of memories, something broke inside me. But something else hardened too. Because what Emma didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd seen this coming. For the past year, I'd been carefully documenting everything. Every shipment of expired food Emma had ordered restaurants to serve. Every health code violation she paid inspectors to overlook. Every bit of creative accounting that kept the group's true financial state hidden from the board. And I'd been making other plans too. Plans that would take time to mature. But when they did, I stepped out of Little Bird for the final time, the spare key heavy in my pocket. Emma had won this battle, but she just started a war she wasn't prepared to fight. Goodbye, Little Bird, I whispered to the empty cafe. See you soon. 1 year passed like a slow brewing espresso. I watched from a distance as Emma transformed Little Bird into her vision of corporate coffee culture. The warm wooden tables were replaced with cold marble. The local art gave way to mass-produced prints. Even our signature drinks were reimagined with pretentious Italian names and inflated prices. But while Isabella's cafes expanded aggressively, I was busy with my own careful preparations. Everything's ready, Marcus Wan said, sliding a folder across his desk. As one of the city's top restaurant consultants, he'd been helping me piece together the puzzle of Foster Restaurant Group's finances. You were right about the numbers. They don't add up. I opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. How bad is it? Bad. He pointed to several highlighted figures. They're opening new locations using loans secured against projected earnings. But the actual revenue is nowhere near their forecasts. They're burning cash faster than they can make it. And the health code violations? Marcus grimaced. Worse than we thought. I have documented evidence of at least 30 serious violations across their restaurants. They've been bribing inspectors to look the other way. I sat back, absorbing the information. Emma's empire was built on sand, and the tide was rising. My phone buzzed. A text from my old assistant at Little Bird, now working at Isabella's corporate office. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow. Something about the new health inspector. I smiled. Right on schedule. The next morning, I dressed carefully in a simple but elegant suit. No designer labels, just quiet confidence. The newspaper headlines told the story I'd been orchestrating for months. Major revengestory anti-jewelry cases health code investigation. Isabella's CAFAS 0 case numbers West IMD by Anna Hale Weiss TS. Foster restoranti GROUP STOCK plunges on FRAUD ALGH Islands. I didn't go to the board meeting. Instead, I sat in a quiet corner of my new office, watching the chaos unfold through the updates flooding my phone. The new health inspector, one who couldn't be bribed, had conducted surprise inspections of 10 Foster Restaurant Group locations. The results were devastating. Meanwhile, an anonymous tip had led financial regulators to investigate their loan applications. Emma called 4 times. I let each call go to voicemail, imagining her increasing panic as her carefully constructed world began to crumble. Finally, Dad's number flashed on my screen. For the first time in a year, I answered. "Where are you?" he demanded, his voice strained. "We need you at this meeting." "Why?" I asked calmly. "I'm not part of the company anymore, remember?" "Sarah, please." "The situation. It's bad. Emma's not handling it well. We need someone who understands the coffee division." I almost laughed. Now you want my expertise. After letting Emma destroy everything I built. "That was business," he said weakly. This is business too, Dad." I cut him off. "But I'll tell you what, have Emma call Phoenix Hospitality Group. They might be interested in discussing acquisition terms. Phoenix Hospitality, the investment firm that's been buying up distressed restaurant properties. That's the one. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. I hear they're very fair in their dealings. Unlike some people. 2 hours later, Emma called again. This time I answered. Phoenix Hospitality is your company, isn't it? She didn't bother with pleasantries. You're behind all of this. Behind what, Emma? The health violations you tried to hide? The fraudulent loan applications? The cooked books? You vindictive little. Careful, I interrupted softly. You're about to need my help. The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, she spoke through gritted teeth. What do you want? Meet me at Little Bird. The original one. 1 hour. That's impossible. We have auditors here, regulators. 1 hour, Emma. Or I start sharing some very interesting documents with those regulators. I hung up, then made one more call. Marcus, start the next phase. Exactly 1 hour later, I stood in what had once been my beloved cafe. The pretentious renovations couldn't quite hide its bones, the exposed brick walls, the towering windows, the soul of the place still visible beneath Emma's corporate veneer. She'd arrived 5 minutes late, designer heels clicking against the marble floor. But her usual polish was cracking. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her eyes haunted. All right, she snapped. What's your game? I gestured to a table, one of my old wooden ones, recently delivered. Let's talk about the future of Foster Restaurant Group. There might not be a future, she admitted, sinking into the chair. These investigations, the loans coming due, were hanging by a thread. I know, I sat across from her. I also know exactly how many health codes you've violated, how many inspectors you've bribed, and how much money you've hidden from the board. Her face went pale. How did you? You're not the only one who knows how to play the game, Emma. I just play it cleaner. I pulled out a thick folder and laid it on the table. Phoenix Hospitality is prepared to acquire Foster Restaurant Group. We'll stabilize the finances, resolve the legal issues, and implement proper quality control across all properties. You want to take over? She laughed bitterly. After everything, you want to be my boss? No, Emma. I want to save our family's legacy, the right way this time. She stared at me for a long moment, really seeing me perhaps for the first time. When did you get so ruthless? I learned from the best, I smiled. The difference is, I never lost my integrity in the process. The door chimed as Dad walked in, looking older than I'd ever seen him. The board's ready to vote, he said quietly. They're just waiting for terms. I pushed the folder toward Emma. It's your choice. Sign now, keep some dignity, and stay on in a reduced role. Wait and watch it all burn down. Her hand trembled as she reached for the papers. I never thought, never imagined you'd. Never imagined I had the killer instinct for serious business. I finished for her. Funny how things work out. 6 months can change everything. The transformation of Foster Restaurant Group under Phoenix Hospitality's leadership proved that daily. I stood in Little Bird's doorway, watching the morning crowd fill the restored space. The marble was gone, replaced by the warm woods and local art I'd always loved. The overpriced pastries had given way to fresh goods from local bakers. Most importantly, the soul of the place had returned. The numbers from last quarter are in, Marcus said, appearing at my side. Little Bird's revenue is up 200% since the restoration. The authentic approach is working across all locations. And the health inspections? Perfect scores across the board, he smiled. Amazing what happens when you actually follow the rules. I noticed Emma before she saw me, standing uncertainly by the counter. Gone were the designer suits and perfect makeup. Today she wore simple business casual, her hair pulled back naturally. The morning rush looks good, she said as I approached. Since the takeover, she'd been working as our quality control manager, a position that required her to actually visit restaurants and interact with staff. To my surprise, she was good at it. Better than your projections for Isabella's ever were. I couldn't resist adding. She flinched slightly. I deserve that. I deserve worse, actually. She paused, watching a barista carefully craft a latte. You know what I realized? I never once tasted the coffee at Isabella's. Not really. I was too busy planning expansions and manipulating numbers. And now? Now I know every blend we serve. I know our baristas' names. I understand why people love Little Birds so much. She turned to face me. I understand what I destroyed. Before I could respond, Dad walked in. Like Emma, the past 6 months had changed him. Retirement suited him. He looked younger, more relaxed. My 2 brilliant daughters, he beamed, hugging us both. I just came from a breakfast meeting with the Restaurant Association. They're talking about Little Bird's revival as a model for sustainable growth in the industry. Sarah's model, Emma corrected quietly. I just wish I'd seen it sooner. I studied my sister, seeing real regret in her eyes. You know, I said slowly, we're planning to launch that coffee subscription service I proposed last year. The one you shot down. We could use someone who understands both the corporate and quality sides to run it. Hope flickered across her face. You trust me with that? After everything. Trust but verify, I smiled. You'll report directly to Marcus, and there will be strict oversight. But yes, I think you've learned some valuable lessons. Dad cleared his throat. Speaking of lessons, the family cabin needs some work. I thought maybe this weekend we could all. Like when we were kids. Emma asked softly. We used to spend weekends there before the restaurant business consumed everything. I looked around Little Bird, at the happy customers, the dedicated staff, the warmth and authenticity we'd restored. Sometimes fixing a business meant fixing a family too. I'd like that, I said. Later that evening, after the last customers had left, I sat at my favorite table by the window. Emma joined me, placing 2 cups of our signature blend between us. I've been meaning to ask, she said. How did you do it? Bill Phoenix hospitality right under our noses. I took a sip of coffee, savoring the perfect blend. While you were focused on expansion at any cost, I was building relationships, connecting with other independent restaurant owners, learning about their challenges. When foster groups started taking over and ruining beloved local spots, they were happy to invest in a company dedicated to preserving authentic dining experiences. And the evidence against us. People talk when they're angry. Your shortcuts, the health violations, all I had to do was listen. And document. She nodded slowly. You could have destroyed us completely, had us all arrested. I could have, I agreed. But that wasn't the point. The point was to save what mattered, our family's legacy of bringing people together through food and drink, just not the way you were doing it. I understand that now. She touched her cup thoughtfully. The subscription service, I have some ideas, ways to connect with customers personally, not just chase numbers. That's exactly what we need. I smiled. Welcome back to Little Bird, Emma. The next morning, I arrived early to find Emma already there, learning the espresso machine from our head barista. Dad sat nearby, actually talking with customers instead of checking stock prices. Marcus appeared with the latest reports, but I waved them away. Later, I said, right now, I need to make some coffee. Behind the counter, working alongside my staff, I felt the familiar peace that had first drawn me to this business. The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the steam from the espresso machine like a halo. Little Bird was soaring again, higher than ever. And this time, it had lifted my whole family with it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what others built, but showing them a better way to build. Sometimes healing a business means healing hearts. And sometimes the most powerful move in business isn't a hostile takeover. It's offering someone who hurt you a chance to do better. As I crafted the day's first latte, drawing a perfect heart in the foam, I smiled. Success, like the perfect cup of coffee, is all about balance. The crystal champagne flutes clinked mockingly as I balanced them on my silver tray, weaving through the crowd of Silicon Valley's elite gathered at my sister Diana's new $20 million mansion. My mother's words from earlier still rang in my ears. Well, Rebecca, since you chose to waste your inheritance on that ridiculous research project, you might as well make yourself useful tonight. I caught my reflection in one of the floor-to-ceiling windows, my simple black dress a stark contrast to the designer gowns floating around me. 3 years ago, I'd stood among these people as an equal, the younger daughter of tech mogul James Anderson. Now I was serving them drinks at my sister's housewarming party. Becky, Diana's voice cut through the ambient chatter. Table 6 needs fresh champagne. Try not to drop anything. These glasses cost more than you make in a month. I bit back a retort, remembering why I was really here. Tonight wasn't about Diana's smug superiority or our mother's disappointment. It was about the leather-bound journal hidden in my car and the truth that would change everything. At least someone finally found their true calling, I heard Diana tell her group of socialite friends as I passed. I mean, after she blew through her trust fund on that crazy DNA research project, honestly, serving drinks suits her better. If they only knew that my crazy research had led me to discover our family's biggest secret, one that our parents had kept buried for 30 years. The invitation to Diana's housewarming party had arrived last week, its gold embossing and heavy cardstock screaming old money. The same day, I'd received a very different delivery, a package from a retired nurse in Boston, containing our grandmother's private journal and a letter that had shaken my world to its core. "Your sister seems to be enjoying herself," a quiet voice said beside me. I turned to find Thomas Chen, my grandmother's former attorney, watching a scene with thoughtful eyes. "Right on schedule." "She always does," I replied softly. "Everything ready?" He nodded almost imperceptibly. "The documents are all here. Are you sure you want to do this tonight? It will destroy them." I looked across the room at my family, Diana holding court in her designer gown, bragging about her new tech venture, funded entirely by her inheritance. Mom circulating through her carefully curated guest list, playing a perfect socialite. Dad standing with his business partners, probably orchestrating another $1 million deal. They looked perfect, untouchable, just like they had that day 3 years ago when they'd labeled me the family failure. 3 years earlier, DNA sequencing. Dad's voice filled his home office with disappointment. "You want to spend your inheritance on genetic research. It's important work," I insisted. "Grandmother's disease, there might be a genetic component we could identify, something that could help other families." "Your grandmother died because she was old," Mom cut in sharply. "This obsession isn't healthy, Rebecca. Diana is investing her inheritance in a proper business venture. Why can't you be more like your sister?" "Because I'm not Diana," I shot back. "And grandmother's death wasn't that simple. If you just listen." "Enough." Dad slammed his hand on his mahogany desk. "This discussion is over. Either invest your inheritance responsibly or don't come crying to us when you've wasted it all." I chose the research. They chose to write me off. Present day. "Mrs. Anderson." Thomas's voice pulled me back to the present. "Your daughter Diana's success is remarkable. She must have inherited your late mother-in-law's business acumen." Mom's perfectly maintained smile faltered slightly. "Oh, Margaret hardly had any head for business. She was more interested in her charity work and medical research." "Medical research?" Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Like your younger daughter?" Before Mom could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. An elderly woman had arrived, her silver hair elegant against her simple but expensive suit. Several guests gasped in recognition. "Is that?" Diana hurried over. "Dr. Sarah Chen, the genetic researcher?" I smiled slightly, right on cue. "I apologize for crashing your lovely party," Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "But I'm looking for Rebecca Anderson. I believe she has something that belongs to me." All eyes turned to me as I set down my tray of champagne glasses. "Actually, Dr. Chen," I said clearly, "I believe what I have belongs to all of us." Mom's face had gone pale. "Rebecca, what is this about?" I pulled out grandmother's journal, its worn leather familiar under my fingers. "It's about the truth, Mom. About why grandmother really died. About the Anderson family's biggest secret." Dad stepped forward, his face darkening. "Whatever you think you know." "I know everything," I cut him off. "About the experimental treatment trials in 1992. About the cover-up. About my real mother." The crystal champagne glass slipped from Diana's hand, shattering on the marble floor. I opened the journal to its last entry, my voice steady as I began to read. "My dearest granddaughter Rebecca, if you're reading this, then you finally discovered what your father has tried so hard to hide. The truth about your birth, about your real mother, and about why I've left you the key to everything." The room erupted in chaos as I continued reading. 30 years of carefully constructed lies were about to unravel. And this was just the beginning. The words from grandmother's journal hung in the air like smoke, suffocating in their implications. Diana was the first to recover, her perfectly glossed lips curling into a sneer. "This is ridiculous," she spat. "Another one of your desperate attempts for attention. First the DNA research, now this. But our mother's face told a different story. She'd sunk into the nearest chair, her usual poise shattered. James, she whispered to our father, she found Margaret's journal. Dad's attempt at damage control was immediate. I apologize, everyone, he announced to the stunned party guests. My daughter has been struggling with personal issues. Perhaps we should. Perhaps, Dr. Sarah Chen's voice cut through his smoothly. We should discuss the clinical trials at Boston Memorial Hospital in 1992. The ones you helped cover up, Mr. Anderson. The color drained from Dad's face. I continued reading from the journal. James will tell you it was an accident, that Sarah Chen's death during the experimental treatment was unavoidable. He'll never admit that he altered the trial data, buried the evidence that could have saved others. He'll never tell you that Sarah was more than just a researcher, she was your mother. Stop this nonsense immediately, Dad thundered, but his usual authority was cracked by panic. Thomas Chen stepped forward, removing documents from his briefcase. I have here the original trial records, DNA test results, and a letter from Margaret Anderson detailing everything. Your grandmother was quite thorough, Rebecca. The story spilled out like blood from a long festering wound. Sarah Chen, a brilliant genetic researcher, had been working on revolutionary treatment protocols when she discovered she was pregnant. My father, then a rising pharmaceutical executive, had been funding her research and having an affair with her. When the trial results showed dangerous side effects, Dad had buried the reports to protect his company's stock price. Sarah had threatened to expose everything. 3 days later, she died during a routine procedure, leaving behind a newborn baby. Me. Grandmother knew, I said quietly, watching my father's empire of lies crumble. She found out everything while investigating the trial deaths, but instead of exposing you, she made a deal. She'd stay quiet if you adopted her granddaughter. Me? Diana's face had turned an interesting shade of green. No, this isn't, we're not. Not what, Diana? Not actually sisters. That's right, and grandmother's fortune, the one you've been so proudly spending, it was never meant for you. Thomas Chen produced another document, Margaret Anderson's real will written before her death. She left everything to Rebecca, Sarah Chen's daughter and her only biological grandchild. The room erupted in chaos. Mom had started sobbing, decades of perfectly maintained secrets dissolving in her expensive mascara. Diana was screaming about lawyers and rights. But Dad just stood there, finally facing the truth he'd buried for 30 years. Why now? He asked hoarsely. Why like this? I thought about the years of feeling like an outsider in my own family, of being compared to Diana and found wanting, of being mocked for my interest in genetic research, the same passion that had driven my real mother. Because lies have a way of poisoning everything they touch, I replied. Look around, Dad. This mansion, Diana's company, your perfect family image, it's all built on my mother's death. I never meant, he began, but I cut him off. To fall in love with her? To choose your company's profits over her life? To make her child feel like a failure for following in her footsteps? Dr. Chen stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. Sarah would be proud of you, she said softly. You have her brilliance, her determination to find the truth. Diana, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly lunged for the documents in Thomas's hands. This isn't fair. That money is mine. I've already spent millions. I finished for her. Yes, I know. The mansion, the cars, the startup, all funded by the inheritance that was rightfully mine. Don't worry, sister dear. You can keep this house. I can? Consider it severance pay, but the family company? Grandmother's pharmaceutical patents. Those revert to me, effective immediately. Dad's business partners had started edging toward the door, no doubt already calculating how this scandal would affect their deals. Mom was still crying, 30 years of lies finally catching up with her. What are you going to do? Dad asked, his voice small. I looked around the mansion's grand foyer, at the life my sister had built with stolen money, at the family that had been built on deception. I'm going to do what my mother wanted to do 30 years ago. Use our resources to help people, not profit from their suffering. Starting with reopening her research. The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, reporters, and shell-shocked party guests making hasty exits. By midnight, Deanna's perfect housewarming had become the scandal of Silicon Valley. I stood in the garden looking up at the stars when Dr. Chen found me. "Your mother used to do this," she said quietly. "Stargaze when she needed to think. You're so like her." "Tell me about her, please." As she began to speak, sharing memories of the mother I never knew, I felt something shift inside me. The anger, the hurt, the need for revenge. It all melted away, replaced by something else. Purpose. 1 week later, the Anderson pharmaceutical sign was being replaced with a new one. Chen Anderson Research Institute. Inside, my mother's old lab was being renovated, updated with modern equipment, but keeping her original research notes carefully preserved. Deanna had checked into a wellness retreat, her perfect world shattered by the truth. Mom had filed for divorce, finally free from decades of maintaining Dad's lies. And Dad was facing investigations into the 1992 trials, his carefully constructed empire crumbling. But this story isn't about their fall. It's about building something new from the ashes of lies. About a daughter discovering her true inheritance, not money or mansions, but a legacy of brilliant research and unwavering pursuit of truth. As I write this from my mother's old office, I can see her face in the photos Dr. Chen shared with me. The same determined set of her jaw, the same passionate gleam in her eyes when discussing her work. I may have served drinks at my sister's party, but I was serving something else too. Justice, truth, and the promise I made to two remarkable women, my mother and my grandmother. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying what others have built, but in building what they tried to prevent. My mother's research continues through me, and this time, no one will bury the truth. The gleaming tiles of Ocean's newest luxury restaurant squeaked under my mop as I cleaned the floor for the third time that evening. My brother Michael's voice echoed through the empty dining room. "I want every surface perfect for tomorrow's opening, Sarah. Since you enjoy playing with food so much, you might as well make yourself useful cleaning up after real chefs." I bit back a response, focusing instead on the perfect circular motions of the mop. Let him think I was just his failure of a sister, working as a cleaner to make ends meet. In less than 24 hours, everything would change. Can you believe it? I heard Michael telling his fiancée Amanda as they inspected the designer place settings. 10 years ago, this was just a dream. Now Ocean will be the crown jewel of San Francisco's restaurant scene. And Sarah will be cleaning its toilets, Amanda snickered, adjusting her designer watch. I suppose someone has to. The irony of their conversation wasn't lost on me. 10 years ago, we had shared that dream. Michael and I, two siblings passionate about food and determined to make our mark on the culinary world. But life has a way of revealing people's true colors, usually when money is involved. 10 years earlier. What do you mean you're using all of Dad's inheritance? I stared at Michael across our parents' kitchen table, the same table where we'd spent countless hours experimenting with recipes as kids. "Be reasonable, Sarah," he sighed, straightening his newly purchased designer tie. "Opening a high-end restaurant in San Francisco takes serious capital. Dad's inheritance is our chance to make it happen. Our chance. That money was meant to be split between us. We were supposed to open the restaurant together." Michael's expression hardened. "Look, you're a good cook, but this is business. I have the MBA, the connections, the vision. You're just enthusiastic about food. Tell you what, once Ocean is successful, I'll give you a job. Maybe even let you work up to line cook someday." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Keep your job offer. I'll find my own way." "With what?" He scoffed. "Your half of the inheritance wouldn't even cover the kitchen equipment. Face it, Sarah, you need me." I walked out of that house with nothing but my recipes and determination. Michael got his wish. The entire inheritance, our parents' house, and sole ownership of what should have been our shared dream. Present day. "Sarah," Michael's sharp voice yanked me back to the present. "The VIP bathroom still needs cleaning. The investors will be here in 2 hours for the pre-opening party." I pushed my cleaning cart toward the bathroom, passing a wall of framed restaurant reviews, all celebrating Michael's innovative vision and culinary genius. If they only knew that every signature dish on Ocean's menu had originated in our parents' kitchen, created by the sister he now had cleaning toilets. But Michael had forgotten 3 important things about me. First, while he was busy buying designer suits and schmoozing with investors, I'd spent the last 10 years studying everything about the restaurant industry, from supply chains to sustainable farming. Second, his original recipes weren't the only ones I created in that old kitchen. And third, most importantly, he hadn't bothered to read this month's Forbes magazine, which was about to cause quite a stir at his opening party. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena, my business partner. Everything ready for tonight? Almost, I replied. Michael has no idea you're one of his VIP investors. Elena, the CEO of Verde Ventures, had been instrumental in turning my small farm-to-table concept into a revolutionary restaurant empire. While Michael had been building one luxury restaurant, I'd been quietly creating a sustainable food distribution network that now supplied half of California's top restaurants. The only catch: I'd done it all under my mother's maiden name. As far as the culinary world knew, Sarah Chen was the mysterious founder of Terra Restaurants and Farm Fresh Networks. Not Sarah Anderson, Michael's failure of a sister. Another text from Elena. Ford's article is already online. Your brother's investors should be seeing it any minute. I smiled, thinking of the magazine's cover story. The Future of Food. How Sarah Chen Built a Billion-Dollar Sustainable Restaurant Empire. The article detailed how my company had revolutionized farm-to-table dining while keeping prices accessible to average families. The complete opposite of Michael's overpriced, pretentious concept. Sarah. Michael's voice again. Stop daydreaming and get changed. The guests will be arriving soon. I need you to serve drinks. I changed from my cleaner's uniform into the simple black dress required for servers, watching through the kitchen window as San Francisco's elite began arriving. Michael worked the room like a conductor, proudly showing off his imported marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The menu features my own original creations. I heard him tell a group of impressed investors. Family recipes, you might say. Family recipes indeed. I checked my watch. Almost time. Elena would be arriving with the other investors soon, and with her, the truth about those family recipes, about the real culinary genius in the Anderson family, about the sister Michael had written off as nothing but a dreamer. The door chimed as another group of investors entered. I straightened my server's apron, picked up a tray of champagne, and prepared to watch 10 years of arrogance come crashing down. The champagne bubbles matched the nervous energy in my stomach as I circulated through Ocean's pre-opening party. Michael was in his element, holding court near the demonstration kitchen where his executive chef was preparing his signature dish. My grandmother's deconstructed bouillabaisse that had won me my first cooking competition at 16. The secret, Michael was telling an impressed group of investors, is in the saffron rouille, a family recipe passed down through generations. I bit back a smile, remembering the dozens of attempts it had taken me to perfect that sauce in our parents' kitchen while Michael was away at business school. He dismissed it as too traditional back then. Now it was his claim to fame. Fascinating. A familiar voice cut through the crowd. I'd love to hear more about your family's culinary heritage. Elena Chen had arrived. Michael's face lit up as he recognized one of San Francisco's most prominent restaurant investors. Ms. Chen, we're honored to have you here. I had no idea you were interested in Ocean. Oh, I'm very interested in family restaurants, Elena smiled, accepting a champagne glass from my tray without even glancing at me. Especially ones with, shall we say, interesting interpretations of family recipes. Before Michael could respond, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones were being pulled out, screens lighting up with notifications. The Ford's article had just gone live. Oh my God, I heard Amanda gasp from nearby. Look at this. The Future of Food. How Sarah Chen Built a Billion-Dollar Sustainable Restaurant Empire. Michael frowned. Chen, any relation? He asked Elena. Actually, Elena's smile turned razor sharp. Sarah Chen is my business partner. She should be here any minute. In fact, she turned to me. Isn't that right, Sarah? The champagne tray trembled slightly in my hands as every head turned toward me. Michael's face went from confused to shocked to pale in the span of seconds. Sarah, he whispered. What is this? I set down the tray carefully. Hello, brother. Surprised to see your cleaner on the cover of Forbes. The room erupted in whispers. Michael grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the kitchen. What kind of game are you playing? No game, I said calmly, removing his hand. While you were busy stealing our parents' inheritance and my recipes, I was building something real, something sustainable. Your recipes? He scoffed, but there was fear in his eyes. I created everything on Ocean's menu. Did you? Elena had followed us, phone in hand. Then you won't mind explaining this? She played a video footage from our parents' home movies, a teenage me in the kitchen, explaining my technique for the very bouillabaisse sauce Michael had been bragging about minutes earlier. The date stamp was clear, 15 years ago. That's nothing, Michael started, but Elena wasn't finished. We have dozens of these videos, Michael. Every signature dish on your menu created by Sarah years before you claimed them as your own. Not to mention the journal where you wrote down her recipes while she was busy building terror restaurants. Michael's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You can't prove. Actually, I interrupted, we can. You see, when you were busy taking credit for my work, I was documenting everything. Every recipe, every technique, every family story behind them. That's what made Terra Restaurant successful, authenticity. The kitchen doors burst open as Amanda rushed in, her designer dress wrinkled in panic. Michael, everyone's leaving. The investors. They're all talking about some farm-to-table empire and stolen recipes. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Your sister, Elena explained coolly, has revolutionized the restaurant industry. Terra Restaurant sources directly from local farms, pays living wages, and makes high-quality food accessible to everyone. While Ocean, she gestured around the opulent dining room, well, let's just say overpriced stolen recipes aren't very innovative. I can explain, Michael started, but the damage was done. Through the kitchen windows, we could see his investors heading for the exits, phones pressed to their ears. Don't bother, I said quietly. The truth was always going to come out, Michael. I just wanted to make sure I was ready when it did. Ready for what? He demanded. To buy Ocean, Elena answered. Terra Restaurants is expanding, and this location would be perfect after some remodeling. We're thinking of making it our flagship farm-to-table fine dining concept. Michael's legs gave out, and he sank onto a nearby prep station. You planned this? All of it. The cleaning job, the serving. I wanted to see if you changed, I admitted. If any part of my brother, the one who used to share my dreams of making good food accessible to everyone, was still in there. But you're still the same Michael who stole our inheritance and my recipes. What do you want? He whispered. Originally, revenge, but now? I looked around the kitchen, remembering our childhood dreams. Now I want to turn this place into something meaningful. Something that would have made Mom and Dad proud. The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, reporters, and shell-shocked staff members learning their boss's restaurant was about to undergo a major transformation. By midnight, Michael's dream of being San Francisco's next celebrity chef had evaporated. 1 month later, Ocean's pretentious decor had been replaced with warm, sustainable materials. The overpriced menu was gone, replaced by accessible farm-to-table cuisine that honored our family's real culinary heritage. Michael had sold under threat of a lawsuit, taking Amanda and his bruised ego to Miami. I stood in the renovated kitchen, watching the staff prepare for our opening night. The wall that once held Michael's stolen accolades now showcased photos of our local farming partners and the real stories behind our family recipes. Ready? Elena asked, joining me at the pass. I picked up a familiar bowl, my grandmother's bouillabaisse, presented simply but perfectly. You know what the real secret ingredient was? I asked. The saffron rouille. Love, I smiled. Not for fame or money, but for the joy of feeding people well. As I write this from my office above the restaurant that was almost Ocean, I can hear the happy chatter of our first customers discovering what real family recipes taste like. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying what others have built, but in transforming it into something truly meaningful. The conference room fell silent as Sarah Williams, my direct supervisor, stood over me with a termination letter. I was 8 months pregnant, suffering from severe morning sickness, and had just requested to work from home 2 days a week on doctor's orders. We can't accommodate employees who can't give 100% to the company, Sarah said, her perfectly painted red lips curling into a smirk. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. I clutched my laptop bag closer. It contained the only copy of my late father's emails and video messages. Or so I thought. Please just let me keep my work computer for one day to transfer my personal files. Company property stays here, Sarah snapped, signaling to security. Maybe this will teach you not to mix personal life with business. Besides, she leaned in close, whispering, everyone knows you only got this job because your father was a board member before he died. If only she knew the truth about my father, James Chen. Everyone at Reynolds Technologies thought he had been a minor board member who died in a car accident 6 months ago. They didn't know he had actually gone underground to investigate corporate espionage, or that he was the company's majority shareholder. Your father's dead, Sarah continued, enjoying my distress. He can't protect you anymore. Now get out before I call security. I stood up slowly, one hand on my swollen belly. My baby kicked, as if sensing my distress. You'll regret this, Sarah. She laughed. What are you going to do? Sue us? Good luck proving discrimination. I've documented all your performance issues very carefully. As security led me out, I caught a glimpse of my desk. Sarah was already there, grabbing my laptop, probably planning to delete everything before HR could investigate. What she didn't know was that my father's last message had contained a warning. Emma, if you're watching this, something's happened to me. Reynolds Technologies has a rot at its core. People stealing technology, selling secrets. I'm going dark to gather evidence. If anything happens to you, open the blue envelope in my study. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemies think they've won. I hadn't understood then. But as I walked out of Reynolds Technologies that day, one hand protectively over my unborn child, I finally opened the blue envelope I'd been carrying in my purse for 6 months. Inside was a single USB drive and a note. The board meeting is in 2 weeks. That's when everyone learns who really owns Reynolds Technologies. Stay strong, little dragon. Dad. Little did Sarah know, but firing you wasn't just unfair. It was about to trigger a chain of events that would expose everything she and her conspirators had tried to hide. Because 2 weeks wasn't just the board meeting date, it was also when my father would finally return. The Reynolds Technologies boardroom buzzed with nervous energy. 2 weeks after my firing, the entire executive team had gathered for what they thought was a routine quarterly meeting. Sarah sat near the head of the table, wearing the same red lipstick she'd worn the day she fired me. Before we begin, she announced, shuffling papers importantly, I've restructured my entire department after removing some dead weight. Her eyes gleamed as she referenced my termination. That's when the double doors swung open. My father, James Chen, walked in wearing an impeccably tailored suit, very much alive and flanked by federal agents. The color drained from Sarah's face so fast her red lipstick looked like a wound. I believe, Dad said calmly, you're sitting in my chair, Ms. Williams. James, Sarah stuttered, dropping her papers. But, you're dead. The car accident. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Dad smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. Though not as exaggerated as your performance reports on my daughter. The board members started whispering. Dad held up a hand for silence. 6 months ago, I discovered someone was selling our quantum computing technology to our competitors. The same person was falsifying employee records, embezzling funds, and systematically removing anyone who got too close to the truth. He nodded to the federal agents who moved to block the exits. Would you like to explain the offshore accounts, Sarah? Or should we start with the edited security footage from the night of my accident? Sarah jumped up, her chair clattering backward. You can't prove anything. Actually, I said, walking into the room, my pregnancy even more visible now, we can prove everything. I connected my father's USB drive to the presentation screen. Emails, bank statements, and security footage filled the display, all showing Sarah's careful orchestration of corporate theft, fraud, and my wrongful termination. You see, Dad continued, when I discovered the theft, I knew I needed to go underground. But I couldn't leave the company unprotected. So I installed my daughter as my eyes and ears. Every document she handled, every meeting she attended, everything was being monitored. Sarah lunged for her bag, but an agent grabbed it first, removing her company laptop, my old laptop. Interesting thing about computer forensics, I added, rubbing my belly absently. Even deleted files can be recovered, including the ones where you detailed your plan to force me out before I could discover your connection to the technology theft. You don't understand. Sarah's voice turned desperate. They made me do it. Harrison Tech threatened my family. The room fell silent. Dad's expression darkened. Harrison Tech, the same company that tried to buy us out last year. But before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Security cameras showed men in black entering the lobby, armed and dangerous. Right on schedule, Sarah's desperate look transformed into a cruel smile. You really think I didn't have a backup plan? As the sound of gunfire erupted from below, I realized this was about much more than corporate theft. The real conspiracy was only beginning to unfold. As gunfire echoed through the building, my father stayed remarkably calm. He pressed a button on his watch and smiled. Backup plan, he said to Sarah. You mean the Harrison Tech mercenaries? I'm afraid they're having a rather difficult time in the lobby right now. The security feed switched to show the lobby, where the armed men were already surrounded by an elite tactical team. You see, Sarah, when you're the real owner of a tech company, you don't just have security guards. You have ex-military contractors. Sarah's composure cracked completely. This is impossible. I planned everything perfectly. Did you? I stepped forward, one hand on my belly. Like how you perfectly planned my father's accident? Or how you perfectly planned to frame me for the technology theft? I connected a second USB drive to the display. New documents appeared. Sarah's private emails with Harrison Tech executives, plans for a hostile takeover, and most damning of all, surveillance footage of her tampering with my father's car 6 months ago. The thing about being 8 months pregnant, I continued, is that everyone underestimates you. While you were busy deleting files from my laptop, you never checked the backup drive I kept in my maternity purse. The one you called ridiculously large last week. The board members watched in shocked silence as years of Sarah's schemes unfolded on screen. The technology theft was just the beginning. She'd been systematically destroying the company from within, weakening it for a Harrison Tech takeover. But why? One board member finally asked. Because, my father answered, Sarah Williams isn't her real name. Show them, Agent Roberts. One of the federal agents stepped forward with a file. Sarah Williams died 15 years ago. This woman is Claire Harrison, daughter of Harrison Tech's CEO. The room erupted in chaos. Sarah, or Claire, made a desperate dash for the door but didn't get far. Her designer heels betrayed her, sending her sprawling into the arms of waiting federal agents. You fools, she screamed as they handcuffed her. Do you know what my father will do to this company? Your father, I said quietly, is already in custody. Turns out, he wasn't very happy when we showed him evidence that you were planning to double-cross him too. Those offshore accounts you set up, they weren't just for stolen technology money. You were embezzling from Harrison Tech as well. As they led her away, my father addressed the stunned board. Reynolds Technologies isn't just my company, it's my legacy. And now, it's my daughter's legacy too. He gestured to me, meet your new CEO, gentlemen. And before you protest about her qualification or condition, you might want to know that while working in our entry-level position, she filed 12 patents and developed a quantum encryption system that just saved all your jobs. 9 months later, I walked back into Reynolds Technologies, this time with my daughter in my arms. The company had transformed. Our technology was more secure than ever. Employee benefits now included comprehensive parental leave, and productivity was at an all-time high. Sarah/Claire was sentenced to 20 years for corporate espionage, attempted murder, and fraud. Harrison Tech was dissolved, its assets sold to compensate their victims. My father split his time between spoiling his granddaughter and mentoring young tech entrepreneurs, particularly supporting working parents in the industry. As for me, I kept the large purse, but now it carries baby toys instead of USB drives. My office has a nursery attached, showing other working mothers that they don't have to choose between family and career. Sometimes, during late nights at the office, I visit the conference room where Sarah fired me. The view of the city is different now, clearer, brighter. My daughter's crib sits where I once stood in tears, a reminder that our lowest moments don't define us. The company's new motto hangs on every wall. Innovation comes from understanding. Below it, in smaller letters, never underestimate anyone, especially not a pregnant woman with a large purse. Growing up in the Montgomery household meant living in my sister Victoria's shadow. While I worked hard to earn everything I had, Victoria was handed life on a silver platter. Our father, James Montgomery, was the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, one of the largest technology companies in the country. But he had an unusual approach to parenting, one that would eventually change everything. "Charlotte, why can't you be more like your sister?" Mom would sigh, watching Victoria glide through our mansion's marble halls in designer clothes. "She's already engaged to a senator's son, and what are you doing? Working at that tiny tech startup." What they didn't know was that the tiny tech startup was actually a subsidiary of our father's biggest competitor, and I was far more than just an employee. But we'll get to that part later. It all came to a head at Victoria's wedding, the social event of the season. 500 guests, a historic castle venue, and a dress that cost more than most people's yearly salary. I stood in front of my mirror, carefully wrapping the small gift box that contained a simple gold necklace. The $50 price tag was still visible through the tissue paper, and I deliberately left it there. "Charlotte," Victoria's shrill voice echoed through the bridal suite. "You're late for the pre-wedding photos. And what are you wearing?" I smoothed down my simple blue dress, purchased off the rack at a department store. Unlike the other bridesmaids in their custom-made designer gowns, I had insisted on choosing my own attire. "You're embarrassing me," Victoria hissed, her perfectly made-up face twisting into a scowl. "First you refused to wear the proper bridesmaid dress, and now this. Dad's entire board of directors is here." If only she knew that I had regular meetings with most of those board members. But that was my father's carefully guarded secret, one that had been in place for the past 5 years. The wedding ceremony went exactly as planned. Excessive, showy, and dripping with obvious displays of wealth. I sat quietly in my assigned seat, notably separated from the rest of the family, watching Victoria marry Bradley Winchester Aita, her ticket to even more social status. Then came the reception and the moment that would change everything. "Time for gifts," Victoria announced, clapping her hands like an excited child. One by one, guests presented their expensive offerings: rare art, luxury car keys, exotic vacation packages. When it was my turn, I stepped forward with my small box. The room fell silent. "What's this?" Victoria asked, her voice dripping with disdain as she opened it. The $50 price tag fell to the floor. A $50 necklace. From a department store? She held it up for everyone to see, and titters of laughter rippled through the crowd. "Charlotte," Mom said sharply, "how could you? Your sister deserves better than this." Victoria dangled the necklace between 2 manicured fingers like it was contaminated. "Well, I guess this is what we can expect from someone who works at a failed startup. Tell me, Charlotte, how does it feel to be such a disappointment?" The room was thick with anticipation, guests watching the drama unfold like a reality TV show. That's when I noticed my father standing near the back, a slight smile playing on his lips. Next to him was Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies, supposedly our family company's biggest rival. Actually, Marcus's voice cut through the tension. "I believe I can shed some light on Charlotte's employment situation." Victoria rolled her eyes. "What would you know about my sister's dead-end job?" Marcus stepped forward, commanding the room's attention. "Charlotte isn't just an employee at a startup. She's the CEO and founder of Quantum Innovations, which my company acquired last month for $2.3 billion. The silence in the room was deafening. "But that's impossible," Victoria sputtered, her face paling. "She works at some tiny company, she lives in a small apartment, she shops at department stores." Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the stunned crowd. "Your sister built that tiny company from the ground up, developing revolutionary AI technology that's now worth billions. And she did it without ever using the Montgomery name or connections." I finally spoke up, my voice steady. "The necklace is actually from the same store where you once told me I belonged, Victoria. Remember? 5 years ago, when you saw me shopping there and told everyone at your country club that I was an embarrassment to the family." The memory hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Victoria's face cycled through shock, confusion, and horror as the implications sank in. But the revelations weren't over. My father stepped forward, that knowing smile still on his face. "There's more," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had built our family empire. Charlotte's success wasn't just about business acumen, it was about character. He turned to address the entire room, but his eyes were fixed on Victoria. 5 years ago, I set up a test for both my daughters. Victoria was given every advantage, every connection, and unlimited resources. Charlotte was given nothing but a small starter fund, the same amount I started with 30 years ago. I wanted to see what they would do with their opportunities. Father's words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Victoria's perfect wedding reception had turned into something entirely different, a public revelation that would shatter her carefully constructed world. The succession of Montgomery Enterprises, Father continued, his voice steady and purposeful, has always been about more than just bloodline. It's about vision, integrity, and the ability to build something meaningful. Victoria's new husband, Bradley, suddenly looked uncomfortable, tugging at his bow tie. I knew why. He'd married Victoria partly because of her presumed future position as head of Montgomery Enterprises. But Daddy, Victoria's voice had taken on the whiny tone she used when things weren't going her way. He always said the company would stay in the family. That's why you've been grooming me, having me attend all those board meetings. Father raised his hand, silencing her. No, Victoria. I had you attend those meetings to give you opportunities to learn, to show initiative. Instead, you spent those meetings texting your friends and planning social events. The crowd of wedding guests shifted uncomfortably. Many of them were business associates who had witnessed Victoria's behavior firsthand. Meanwhile, Marcus Chen added, stepping forward again, Charlotte was building something remarkable. She attended those same board meetings, not as a Montgomery, but as the anonymous founder of a promising startup. She contributed valuable insights, asked intelligent questions, and earned respect without anyone knowing her true identity. I watched as memories flickered across Victoria's face. All the times she dismissed me at family gatherings, mocked my cheap clothes, bragged about her future role as CEO while I sat quietly, keeping my secrets. The necklace you're holding, I said softly, drawing everyone's attention, isn't just a $50 piece of jewelry. It's a reminder of who you really are, Victoria. 5 years ago, when you saw me shopping at that department store, you didn't just mock me. You told everyone I was adopted because there was no way a real Montgomery would shop somewhere so common. You posted photos of me on social media, trying to shame me. Mom gasped. She hadn't known about this incident. Victoria had carefully hidden her cruelest moments from our parents. That day, I continued, I made a decision. I would succeed or fail on my own merits, not the Montgomery name. I used the starter fund Dad gave us, the same amount he gave you, to found Quantum Innovations. You spent yours on a 3-month shopping spree in Paris. Victoria's hands began to shake. The necklace slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. But I'm the oldest. I'm supposed to inherit everything. That's why Bradley. She stopped abruptly, but it was too late. Her new husband's face hardened as he realized she just admitted to marrying him for status and presumed wealth. Father cleared his throat. It's time to announce the full succession plan for Montgomery Enterprises. As of next month, Charlotte will assume the position of CEO. Her merger with Chen Technologies has created the largest tech innovation company in the country. Victoria, you will retain your trust fund, but it will be managed by the board to prevent any more excessive spending. The room erupted in chaos. Victoria's perfectly arranged wedding cake suddenly didn't seem so important anymore. You can't do this, she screamed, mascara beginning to run down her cheeks. I'm the one who played by all the rules. I married the right person. I maintained our social status. You focused on appearances while your sister focused on substance, Father interrupted. Charlotte proved something I've always believed. True success comes from hard work, integrity, and vision, not from a last name. Bradley, who had been silent until now, stood up. I think he said stiffly, we need to discuss the terms of our prenuptial agreement, specifically the clauses about misrepresentation of assets. Victoria's perfect wedding was unraveling faster than her designer dress. Half the guests were on their phones, undoubtedly spreading the news through their elite social circles. Her carefully curated image as the golden child of the Montgomery Empire was crumbling before her eyes. Mom finally spoke up, her voice trembling. James, surely we can keep this private? Handle it within the family? Like you kept it private when Victoria bullied her sister. Father's voice was stern. When she spread rumors about Charlotte being adopted. When she tried to sabotage every accomplishment her sister made because it didn't fit with her narrative of superiority. That's when Victoria did something I never expected, she laughed. a harsh, bitter sound that silenced the room. You think you're so clever, don't you, Charlotte? Playing the poor, hard-working underdog while secretly being a billionaire CEO. Well, congratulations. You've ruined my wedding day. I hope you're happy. I picked up the necklace from where it had fallen. I'm not happy, Victoria. I'm sad that you never understood what really matters. This necklace represents the moment you showed your true character. And now everyone else sees it too. The aftermath was swift and dramatic. Bradley's family huddled with their lawyers in one corner. Victoria's society friends slowly edged away, already distancing themselves from her falling star. Our mother sat alone, finally forced to confront the true nature of her favored daughter. Father approached me, Marcus Chen at his side. You've exceeded every expectation, he said quietly, not just in business, but in character. You could have exposed Victoria years ago, could have flaunted your success. Instead, you stayed humble, worked hard, and proved yourself worthy of not just running the company, but leading it into the future. Marcus nodded in agreement. The merger between Quantum Innovations, Chen Technologies, and Montgomery Enterprises will revolutionize the industry, and it will be led by someone who understands both innovation and integrity. I looked around the lavish wedding venue, at the expensive flowers, the premium champagne, the designer dresses. None of it seemed to matter anymore. Victoria's perfect day had become a lesson in karma, a public revelation of the truth she tried so hard to hide. As guests began to leave, I placed the $50 necklace on Victoria's table. Consider it a reminder, I said softly, that true value isn't in the price tag, but in the character of the person wearing it. 5 years later, Montgomery Chen Innovations is the leading tech company in the world. Victoria? She and Bradley divorced 2 months after the wedding. She lives off her managed trust fund, no longer welcome in the society circles she once dominated. Sometimes she tries to contact me, usually when she needs money or favors. I have my assistant send her the same response each time. A photo of that $50 necklace. Mom eventually apologized for her role in enabling Victoria's behavior. She's trying to be better, to understand that success isn't measured in social status or designer labels. Dad continues to run the board of directors, proud that his tests revealed the true nature of both his daughters. As for me, I still shop at department stores, live relatively modestly, and focus on innovation rather than attention. The only expensive thing I own is a frame on my office wall. Inside it is a $50 necklace, a reminder that character reveals itself not in moments of triumph, but in how we treat others when we think we're superior. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about proving that success and integrity aren't mutually exclusive. Victoria taught me that lesson, even if she never learned it herself. Hi, I'm Lisa Warner, and this is the story of how my husband's family learned that sometimes the most powerful person in a hospital isn't wearing a white coat. For 2 years, they ridiculed me for being just a nurse while I secretly owned the majority stake in their prestigious hospital. But let me take you back to where it all began. I met Dr. James Warner in the ER during a particularly chaotic night shift. He was the brilliant new neurosurgeon everyone was talking about, and I was the charge nurse coordinating the department. What he didn't know was that I was also the anonymous benefactor who donated $50 million to the hospital's neurosurgery department 6 months earlier. You see, before I became a nurse, I'd built and sold a healthcare technology company for $200 million. But instead of retiring to some beach, I decided to understand healthcare from the ground up. I went to nursing school, worked my way through every department, and quietly invested in hospitals that needed help. James and I fell in love over late-night coffee breaks and emergency surgeries. He loved that I understood his passion for medicine, and I loved his dedication to his patients. When he proposed after a year of dating, I was overjoyed. I didn't tell him about my wealth. Too many experiences with people changing once they knew had taught me caution. That's when I met his family. The Warners were medical royalty. His father, Dr. Richard Warner, was the hospital's chief of surgery. His mother, Dr. Margaret Warner, was a renowned cardiologist. His sister Catherine was following in their footsteps as a promising oncologist. And then there was me, just a nurse. A nurse? Margaret had said during our first dinner together, her voice dripping with disdain. James, darling, surely you can't be serious. Our family has a reputation to maintain. Richard wasn't any better. When we envisioned our son's future, It involves someone more accomplished. Perhaps that lovely neurosurgeon from Johns Hopkins. But James defended me, and we got married in a simple ceremony that his family barely attended. She'll show her true colors soon enough, I overheard Margaret telling James. These lower-level staff always do. What they didn't know was that 6 months before I met James, I purchased a controlling interest in Warner Memorial Hospital through my investment company, Shield Healthcare Holdings. The hospital had been struggling financially, and I saw potential for improvement. I kept my ownership quiet, working through a board of trustees while I learned the hospital from the inside. For 2 years, I endured their constant belittling. Margaret would page me for coffee during important nursing handovers. Richard would blame nursing staff for his department's issues. Catherine would accidentally leave out nursing teams from critical patient care meetings. I took notes on everything, quietly building a file of inefficiencies and problems while working to improve patient care from my position as a nurse. I watched as the Warner family's mismanagement began to affect the hospital more severely. Their prestigious name had kept donors happy for years, but medicine was changing, and they weren't changing with it. The breaking point came last week. James had been growing distant, influenced by his family's constant criticism. During the hospital's annual board meeting, Margaret decided to make her move. "It's time we address the nursing department's failures," she announced to the board. "Starting with my daughter-in-law, who clearly obtained her position through marriage rather than merit." As I sat there in my nursing uniform, Margaret outlined her plan to restructure the nursing department, essentially pushing me out and replacing experienced nurses with cheaper, less qualified staff to cut costs. James sat silently, not defending me. When I looked at him questioningly, he just shrugged. "Maybe Mom's right, Lisa. Maybe you should consider a different career, something more suitable." That night, I packed a bag and left their house. James didn't try to stop me. Margaret was delighted, already planning to introduce him to that Johns Hopkins neurosurgeon. But they have forgotten one crucial detail. The board meeting where Margaret had humiliated me, it wasn't over. Because in exactly 12 hours, Shield Healthcare Holdings would be revealing its owner, and I had my own plans for Warner Memorial Hospital's future. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital in a tailored channel suit instead of my nursing scrubs. The board meeting was reconvening at 9 a.m. sharp to discuss the hospital's financial crisis, a crisis the Warners didn't even know existed yet. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, I watched Margaret animatedly telling her friends about my departure. "Finally, we can restore proper order," she was saying. "I already have 3 suitable candidates to introduce to James." I smiled, knowing what was coming. The hospital's financial director, Mr. Peters, was about to give his quarterly report, one that would wipe those smug smiles off their faces. "Good morning," Mr. Peters began nervously, shuffling his papers. "I'm afraid I have some disturbing news. Warner Memorial's financial situation is, well, it's critical." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Margaret stood up sharply. "That's impossible. Our donors have been pulling out," Mr. Peters cut in. "Our patient satisfaction rates are down 40%. Insurance companies are threatening to drop us. We're losing millions each quarter due to inefficient processes and outdated systems." Richard Warner's face turned red. "Now see here, Peters. The numbers don't lie, Dr. Warner," Peters continued. "Without immediate intervention, we'll have to declare bankruptcy within 3 months." James sat there, stunned. Catherine was frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to verify the information. "Then we'll find new donors," Margaret declared. "The Warner name still carries weight." "Actually," I said, stepping forward, "it doesn't. Not anymore." All heads turned toward me. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting." "Oh, I have every right to be here," I smiled, placing my briefcase on the table. "As the majority shareholder of Warner Memorial Hospital, I'd say I have a significant interest in this discussion." The silence was deafening. James's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. What nonsense is this?" Margaret sputtered. I nodded to Mr. Peters, who pulled up a new slide. "Shield Healthcare Holdings owns 75% of Warner Memorial Hospital," he explained, "and has for the past 3 years. And I said clearly, am the owner and CEO of Shield Healthcare Holdings." I clicked to the next slide, showing documentation of my ownership, my previous company's successful sale, and my extensive healthcare investment portfolio. This is impossible, Richard whispered. You're a nurse. Yes, I am, I agreed. A nurse who built a $200 million healthcare technology company before deciding to learn medicine from the ground up. A nurse who spent 2 years watching this hospital's standards decline while collecting evidence of mismanagement, safety violations, and financial irregularities. Margaret's medical degree, which she'd been clutching like a shield, slipped from her trembling fingers. You see, I continued, while you were also busy looking down on the nursing staff, you missed what was happening to this hospital. Patient care has suffered. Staff morale is at an all-time low. And your prestigious reputation, it's been coasting on a name while medicine passed you by. I walked around the table, enjoying the shocked faces. But here's what's really interesting. The only department showing positive patient outcomes and financial growth? The nursing department you were so eager to restructure. The color drained from Margaret's face as she realized she'd just spent an entire board meeting attacking the hospital's owner. But I wasn't finished, because I had one more revelation that would shake the Warner family to its core. Before we continue, I said, clicking to the next slide, let's talk about the future of Warner Memorial Hospital. The screen displayed detailed plans for a complete hospital restructuring. As of this morning, Shield Healthcare Holdings is implementing a total organizational overhaul. Margaret tried to regain her composure. Now see here, you can't just. I can and I will. I cut her off firmly. The board has already approved these changes, unanimously, I might add, once they saw the financial projections. I began outlining the changes. First, we're implementing a new patient-centered care model, integrating nursing expertise at every level of decision-making. Second, we're investing $100 million in updating our technology and facilities. Richard stood up, his face purple. This is our hospital. You can't. Actually, Dr. Warner, it hasn't been your hospital since you nearly bankrupted it 3 years ago. Remember that mysterious investor who bailed you out? The one you never bothered to meet because, quote, they're probably just some wealthy businessman who doesn't understand medicine. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He sank back into his chair. As for leadership changes, I continued calmly. Dr. Margaret Warner, you're being removed as chief of cardiology. Your department has the highest error rate and lowest patient satisfaction scores in the hospital. Margaret's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Dr. Richard Warner, you're stepping down as chief of surgery. Don't worry, we'll issue a press release calling it a retirement. I turned to Catherine, who was trying to disappear into her chair. Dr. Catherine Warner, your department actually shows promise. You'll remain as head of oncology. But you'll be working with a mentor, a nurse practitioner with 20 years of cancer care experience. Finally, I faced James, who hadn't spoken a word. Dr. James Warner, your surgical outcomes are excellent, but your department's nursing turnover rate is unsustainable. You have a choice. Accept supervision from the new nursing director or transfer to another hospital. And who, Margaret managed to sputter, will be this new nursing director? Me, I smiled. I'll be serving as both director of nursing and CEO. Unlike some, I believe in leading from the front lines. James finally found his voice. You, all this time, why didn't you tell me? Would it have made a difference? I asked quietly. Would you have stood up for your family sooner? Defended your wife instead of suggesting she find a more suitable career? He had the grace to look ashamed. The good news, I continued, addressing the entire board, is that these changes will save Warner Memorial. The bad news, for some of you, is that medical degrees and family names no longer guarantee power here. From now on, patient outcomes and care quality will be what matters. I clicked to the final slide. Oh, and one more thing. We're renaming it Shield Memorial Hospital. The Warner name has lost its shine. Margaret actually fainted at that point. Catherine rushed to help her mother while Richard stared blankly at the wall, 30 years of presumed superiority crumbling around him. As the board members filed out, James remained behind. Lisa, he began, I know I don't deserve it, but is there any chance? That depends, I cut in. Are you ready to be married to just a nurse? 6 months later, Shield Memorial Hospital was transformed. Patient satisfaction scores soared. Staff turnover plummeted. Margaret took early retirement, unable to handle working under her former daughter-in-law. Richard actually surprised everyone by adapting well to his new role as a regular surgeon. Turns out he was a better doctor when he wasn't trying to run things. James and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. He worked hard to prove he changed, starting with publicly defending nursing staff in meetings. He even took a nursing basics course to better understand the profession he'd once looked down on. As for me, I still do regular nursing shifts alongside my CEO duties. There's something powerful about a hospital administrator who still knows how to place an IV or calm a frightened patient. Yesterday, I overheard a new doctor asking why the CEO was working a nursing shift. A veteran nurse just smiled and said, because she never forgot that the most important thing in medicine isn't your title. It's your commitment to patient care. And that's worth more than all the medical degrees in the world. Hi, I'm Marcus Chen, and this is the story of how my ex-wife learned that sometimes your biggest mistake can become someone else's greatest opportunity. 10 years ago, she took my struggling tech company in our divorce, thinking she'd won everything. Now she's about to learn what I've built from nothing. Let me take you back to 2014. I had founded SecureNet, a small cybersecurity startup that was just beginning to show promise. My wife, Catherine, had been there from the beginning. Or so everyone thought. In reality, while I worked 80-hour weeks coding and building the company, she was having an affair with our lead investor, James. I discovered the affair the same day we got our first major contract. The celebration champagne was still chilled when I found their messages. Catherine didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she laughed. "Did you really think I loved you?" she said, pouring her wine glass. "James has connections, real money. What do you have? A startup that's probably going to fail anyway." The divorce was brutal. Catherine had documented every small mistake, every shortcut I'd taken while building the company. With James' expensive lawyers helping her, she painted me as an incompetent leader who would run SecureNet into the ground. Since she technically owned 45% of the shares and had James's 15% backing her, she managed to push me out completely. I left that courthouse with nothing but my laptop and the code in my head. Catherine's last words to me were, "Good luck starting over at 35. Try not to embarrass yourself." That night, sitting in my cheap motel room, I made a promise to myself. I would build something bigger, something better, and I would do it in a way that no one could take from me. I started consulting, living on ramen noodles and coffee while saving every penny. I watched from afar as Catherine and James took SecureNet in a new direction, ignoring the core security features I developed in favor of flashier, less secure products. What they didn't know was that before leaving, I created something revolutionary, a quantum encryption algorithm that would change the face of cybersecurity. I hadn't had time to implement it at SecureNet, and Catherine was too busy redecorating the office to notice the research was missing. 5 years of grinding work later, I launched Quantum Shield. The technology was so advanced that major tech companies were practically throwing money at us. Within 2 years, we'd become the leading name in quantum cybersecurity. I kept my success quiet, operating through holding companies and letting others be the public face. I watched as SecureNet struggled, losing clients to newer, more innovative companies, including mine, though Catherine didn't know that. Then came last week. Catherine walked into our headquarters, not knowing who owned it, desperately seeking investment for SecureNet. The company was failing, bleeding clients and money. She pushed James out years ago, but couldn't save the company on her own. As she sat in our waiting room, clutching her proposal folder, she had no idea that her meeting wasn't with some anonymous investor. Because in exactly 1 hour, she was going to come face to face with the ex-husband she'd left with nothing. I watched Catherine through my office's one-way glass. 10 years had added a few lines around her eyes, but she still carried herself with that same arrogant confidence. She was checking her reflection in her phone's screen when my assistant Sarah approached her. "Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Chen will see you now." Catherine frowned. "Chen? I thought I was meeting with Mr. Williams from Quantum Ventures." "Mr. Chen is the CEO of Quantum Ventures," Sarah replied smoothly. "Right this way." I could see confusion crossing Catherine's face. Chen was a common name after all. She followed Sarah, her heels clicking on the marble floor. When she entered my office, her eyes were fixed on her presentation folder. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Chen. I'm here to discuss an investment opportunity in," She looked up and froze mid-sentence. The folder slipped from her hands, scattering papers across the floor. "Hello, Catherine," I said calmly. "It's been a while." She stumbled backward, gripping the doorframe for support. "Marcus, this is impossible. Please have a seat." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "I believe you wanted to discuss SecureNet's future." She sank into the chair, her perfectly composed facade cracking. Your quantum ventures. But they're worth $30 billion at last valuation," I finished for her. "Amazing what you can build in 10 years when someone takes everything you have." Color drained from her face as realization dawned. The quantum shield technology. Everyone's been trying to figure out who developed it. Remember all those nights I spent wasting time on theoretical encryption? I smiled. Turns out it wasn't so useless after all. Catherine's hands were trembling as she gathered her scattered papers. I didn't know you were rich, successful, the owner of the company that's been taking all your clients." I leaned back in my chair. "There's a lot you didn't know, Catherine. Like the fact that Quantum Ventures has been buying SecureNet shares through shell companies for the past year." Her head snapped up. "What?" I clicked a button on my desk, bringing up the ownership breakdown of SecureNet on my wall screen. "As of this morning, I own 51% of SecureNet's shares. Technically, I'm your boss now." "That's not possible," she whispered. "I would have known." "Like you knew about the potential of quantum encryption. Or how about the real reason your biggest clients have been leaving?" I pulled up another screen showing client migration data. "They're all using Quantum Shield now." Catherine's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her growing panic. But I wasn't finished yet. Because I had one more revelation that would show her exactly what she'd thrown away 10 years ago. "Here's the interesting thing about success, Catherine," I said, standing to look out over the city skyline. "It teaches you a lot about what really matters. Would you like to know what I learned?" She sat silently, her hands clenched in her lap. "I learned that losing everything can be the greatest gift." I turned back to face her. "When you took SecureNet, you thought you were taking my future. Instead, you freed me to build something better." "So what now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You're going to destroy SecureNet. Get your revenge." I laughed softly. "Revenge? Catherine, I'm not you. This isn't about destroying anything. It's about building something extraordinary." I clicked to the next slide, showing my plans for SecureNet. "I'm going to merge SecureNet with Quantum Shield's consumer division. The technology I developed, it's going to save the company you thought was worthless. The company you took from me will become part of my legacy after all, just not the way you imagined." "And what about me?" she asked. "That depends on you. I'm offering you 2 choices." I placed 2 contracts on the desk. Option 1. You walk away with a generous severance package. $5 million, enough to start over somewhere else. She reached for the first contract, but I held up my hand. "Before you decide, let me tell you option 2. You stay, but in a very different role. You'll work as a junior project manager, reporting to people who actually understand technology. You'll learn the business from the ground up, the way I did when you left me with nothing." "You want me to be your employee?" Her voice rose in disbelief. "After everything between us?" "What's between us is business now, Catherine. And business is about value, not emotions. You have skills in marketing and client relations. The question is, are you humble enough to learn what you don't know?" She stared at the contracts for a long moment. "Why offer me anything at all?" "Because success taught me something else. Bitterness holds you back. I could destroy you, but I'd rather show you what you could have been part of if you believed in what we were building." 6 months later, Catherine surprised everyone by choosing option 2. She started at the bottom, learning coding basics and cybersecurity fundamentals. It wasn't easy, especially when she had to present to clients who remembered her from her CEO days. But she persevered. Yesterday, she delivered her first successful project presentation. As she explained the technical details of the security protocol she'd helped develop, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine passion for the work itself, not just the status it brought. After the meeting, she stopped by my office. "You know what the worst part is?" she said quietly. "Not losing the company or the money or even the status. It's realizing that 10 years ago, I was too blind to see what you were building." "The past is just code we can't change," I replied. "What matters is what we build next." James called me last week. trying to buy his way back into SecureNet. I sent him the same message Catherine had once given me. Good luck starting over. As for me, I still keep my old laptop from that motel room to remind me that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of building something better. The merged company, now called Secure Shield, is revolutionizing cybersecurity. Catherine runs our client education division, teaching others what she learned the hard way. That real value isn't in what you take, but in what you build. And that first quantum encryption algorithm I designed in those late nights she thought I was wasting. It's now protected by a patent that lists both our names. Not because she deserved it, but because sometimes the best revenge is showing someone exactly what they could have been part of. After all, success isn't about who has the most shares, it's about who shares the most value. Impressive work, James, Marcus said, scrolling through my presentation. This AI security system could revolutionize how we protect corporate networks. I nodded, trying not to show how proud I was of the project I'd spent 2 years developing. Thank you, sir. The neural network's ability to detect and adapt to new cyber threats is completely unique. We could patent this within months. My name is James Chen, and at 32, I created something that could change the cybersecurity industry forever. An artificial intelligence system that could learn and evolve faster than any hacker, protecting networks in real time without human intervention. The board meeting is next week, Marcus continued, leaning back in his leather chair. I want you to send me all the documentation, every line of code, every test result. Something in his tone made me hesitate. In 5 years at TechShield Industries, I'd learned to read my boss's moods. Something wasn't right. Of course, I said carefully, though I should be there to explain the technical aspects. That won't be necessary, he cut in smoothly. I understand it well enough to present myself. Of course he did. Marcus had been taking more and more credit for my work lately. Small things at first, a feature here, an innovation there. But this was different. This was my life's work. That evening, as I prepared the files he'd requested, I got a message from Sarah in HR. Emergency meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Mandatory. I sat back in my chair, pieces clicking into place. Marcus wouldn't dare, would he? The next morning, I walked into the conference room to find Marcus, Sarah, and 2 security guards waiting. James, Marcus began, not even trying to hide his smirk. We've discovered some concerning behavior. Unauthorized use of company resources, working on personal projects during company time. I stayed silent, watching him lay out his trap. Furthermore, he continued, you violated your contract by developing competing technology while employed here. All your work belongs to TechShield. We'll be taking control of the project effective immediately. You mean you'll be taking control? I said quietly. His smile widened. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. As I gathered my belongings, I could see Marcus already rehearsing his board presentation through his office window. He thought he'd won. Thought he'd stolen 2 years of my work with a few manufactured accusations. What he didn't know was that I'd seen this coming months ago. The AI system had a unique feature, one I hadn't documented. A specialized code buried deep in its neural pathways designed to activate exactly 30 days after deployment. In my apartment that night, I opened my laptop and checked the hidden backup server where I'd been documenting everything. Every conversation with Marcus, every stolen idea, every manipulated report, and most importantly, every change he'd made to my code after stealing it. My phone buzzed, a message from Tom in it. He's already modified the base code, trying to make it look like his work, just like you said he would. I smiled, thinking about the trap Marcus was walking into. He was so busy erasing my fingerprints from the project, he didn't realize he was actually arming the trigger. In 30 days, when the system went live for the board, it would do exactly what it was supposed to do, expose every security threat to the company, including the ones hiding in the CEO's office. Over the next few weeks, I watched from afar as Marcus prepared to unveil his revolutionary AI system. Tom kept me updated on every change, every modification, every attempt to erase my contribution. He's completely rewriting the documentation, Tom messaged one evening, removing all traces of your name. But he can't understand half the architecture. He's making mistakes. Perfect. Every change Marcus made to try covering his tracks only reinforced the hidden protocol I'd built into the system's core. Like a digital immune system, it was designed to recognize and remember its original creator. 20 days after my firing, I received an unexpected visitor. Sarah from HR stood at my apartment door, looking nervous. "James," she said quickly, glancing over her shoulder. "I need to tell you something. About Marcus." I let her in curious. Sarah had always been Marcus's loyal soldier, following his orders without question. "He's done this before," she said, perching on the edge of my couch. "At his last company, stole a major project, fired the developer. The guy tried to sue, but," she paused, "the evidence disappeared. Just like your personnel files are disappearing now." I kept my face neutral. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's wrong," she said firmly, "and because I found something when I was archiving your files." She pulled out a thumb drive. "Original project proposals from 2 years ago. Your proposals, with timestamps and signatures. Marcus must have missed these." I took the drive, already knowing it would fit perfectly with the evidence I'd been collecting. "Thank you, Sarah. But aren't you worried about your job?" She stood up, straightening her blazer. "Some things are more important than jobs, James. Besides," she smiled slightly, "I already have interviews lined up at other companies. What Marcus is doing, it's not just wrong, it's illegal." After she left, I checked my hidden server. 10 days until activation. Marcus had scheduled the board presentation for exactly 30 days after my firing, wanting to establish his ownership of the project as quickly as possible. My phone buzzed. "Tom again. You need to see this. He's trying to patch in new security protocols, making a mess of the core functions." I logged in remotely through a secure connection Tom had maintained. There it was, Marcus attempting to modify the AI's fundamental architecture, trying to make it look like his own work. Every clumsy change created new vulnerabilities, new gaps in the system. Gaps that would be exposed when the hidden protocol activated. 7 days before the presentation, I received another unexpected message. This time from Marcus himself. "James, upon review, perhaps we were hasty in terminating your position. Would you be interested in discussing a consulting role? Limited scope, of course." Marcus. He was getting nervous. The system wasn't behaving quite the way he expected. His modifications were creating unpredictable results, and he couldn't understand why. I didn't respond. 3 days before the board meeting, Marcus tried again, this time offering a generous compensation package in exchange for my technical insights. Still, I waited. The day before the presentation, Tom sent me the final confirmation. "Everything's in place. Marcus has scheduled a company-wide system update for tomorrow morning. The entire board will be watching the live demonstration." I smiled, thinking about the elegant simplicity of it all. Marcus had spent weeks trying to erase me from my own creation, not realizing that every change he made only strengthened its core purpose, to identify and expose security threats. And tomorrow, in front of the board, the system would identify its biggest security threat of all. "Thanks, Tom," I replied. "Make sure you're recording tomorrow. Every screen, every reaction." Then I sat back and waited for the show to begin. The morning of the board presentation, I sat in a coffee shop across from TechShield's headquarters, watching through the live feed Tom had set up. The boardroom was full, executives, investors, and tech journalists all gathered to see Marcus' revolutionary breakthrough. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, standing proudly at the podium. "Today we unveil the future of cybersecurity, an AI system that can detect and neutralize threats in real time." I checked my watch. 3 minutes until the system update went live. "This technology, which I've developed over the past 2 years," Marcus continued, "represents a quantum leap in network protection. Allow me to demonstrate." Tom's message popped up. "Update initiating." You should see his face. On screen, Marcus clicked to start the demonstration. The massive display behind him lit up, showing the AI's interface. Everything looked normal, exactly as he expected. Then the system spoke. "Initiating security protocol," the AI's voice announced. "Detecting unauthorized modifications to core architecture." Marcus's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't part of his script. "Warning," the AI continued. "Multiple security vulnerabilities detected. Source: Recent unauthorized changes to base code by user, Marcus Wheeler. The color drained from Marcus's face as he frantically clicked through screens, trying to stop what was happening. But every click only triggered more revelations. The display shifted, showing side-by-side comparisons. My original, elegant code versus Marcus's clumsy modifications. Timestamps of his changes. Recorded meetings where he'd taken credit for my work. Emails where he planned my firing. What you're seeing, the AI explained to the stunned audience, is a comprehensive security audit. My primary function is to identify and expose threats to system integrity. The biggest threat detected: systematic theft of intellectual property by Marcus Wheeler. Sarah's documented evidence appeared next, proof of Marcus's pattern of stealing others' work. Then came the original project proposals she'd saved, showing my name and timestamps. "Turn it off," Marcus shouted, but the system wasn't responding to his commands. It had recognized him as a threat and locked him out. One of the board members stood up. "Mr. Wheeler, what is the meaning of this?" "It's a trick," Marcus stammered. "A disgruntled ex-employee." Actually, Tom's voice came from the doorway as he walked in, holding a stack of papers. "It's exactly what the AI is designed to do. Protect intellectual property and expose security threats. James Chen built this system. These are the original development logs, proving his ownership." The boardroom erupted in chaos. Journalists were frantically taking notes. Investors were making calls. And Marcus looked like a man watching his world collapse. My phone buzzed. A message from the board chairman. "Mr. Chen, this is Charles Montgomery. Would you be willing to meet to discuss your AI system?" The real one, not the compromised version Mr. Wheeler attempted to present. I smiled, typing back, "Of course. Though you should know, what you saw today was the real system, working exactly as designed. It protects against all security threats, including corporate espionage." Within hours, Marcus was escorted out of the building. By evening, news of the scandal had hit the tech blogs. "AI exposes corporate theft during live demo," read the headlines. 1 week later, I sat across from the board of directors, explaining my true vision for the AI system. They listened intently, particularly to my explanation of its ethical protocols. How it was designed not just to protect networks, but to ensure corporate transparency and accountability. "We'd like to offer you a position," Charles said after my presentation. "Chief Technology Officer with full control over your AI's development, and of course, complete patent rights under your name." I accepted, with one condition. Tom would head my development team, and Sarah would lead a new corporate ethics division. As for Marcus, last I heard, he was facing multiple lawsuits, including from his previous companies where he'd pulled similar stunts. The AI had exposed not just his theft of my work, but a pattern of intellectual property theft spanning years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about letting the truth reveal itself at exactly the right moment. Now, whenever I walk past my old office, Marcus's former office, and my new one, I think about something my father used to say: "Intelligence without integrity is a weapon pointed in the wrong direction." Marcus thought he was stealing a weapon. Instead, he armed it against himself. The AI system? It's now an industry standard, protecting not just against external threats, but internal ones too. Every time it identifies and stops corporate theft, I think about that board meeting, about Marcus's face when he realized the truth. He spent so much time trying to erase me from my creation, he never realized that my real signature wasn't in the documentation or the code comments. It was in the heart of the system itself, an unshakable commitment to exposing the truth. Sometimes the best security system isn't just about protecting data. Sometimes it's about protecting what's right. The rain soaked through my clothes as I watched my mother-in-law, Eleanor Windsor, throw the last of my belongings onto the front lawn of the family estate. My husband David stood in the doorway, his face a mask of cold indifference as he watched the scene unfold. "I always knew you were a gold digger," Eleanor spat, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at me accusingly. "Now everyone knows you've been stealing from the family foundation. The evidence is irrefutable. My name is Catherine Windsor, and at 34, I was being framed for embezzling millions from the charity foundation I'd helped build over the last 8 years. But Eleanor had made one critical mistake in her plan to destroy me. She'd underestimated just how much I knew about her own illegal activities. David, I said softly, looking at my husband of 10 years, are you really going to let her do this without even hearing my side? He wouldn't meet my eyes. The bank statements don't lie, Kate. The transfers came from your account. How could you? I thought about the USB drive tucked safely in my purse, containing 5 years' worth of evidence I'd gathered about Eleanor's own financial schemes. Documents showing how she'd been using the foundation as her personal piggy bank, funneling donations into offshore accounts while maintaining a facade of philanthropic nobility. You're right, David, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Bank statements don't lie. Remember that. Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly, the first crack in her triumphant demeanor. She'd always been good at reading people, at sensing when someone knew more than they should. But not good enough. I'd started documenting her activities 3 years ago, when I first noticed discrepancies in the foundation's books. Small things at first, unexplained expenses, missing donation records, irregular transfers. But as I dug deeper, a pattern emerged. Eleanor wasn't just stealing. She was running a sophisticated money laundering operation through the very charity she claimed to cherish. If you ever try to come back, Eleanor warned, I'll make sure you face criminal charges. The police are already investigating. I picked up my suitcase from the wet grass, maintaining my composure despite the rain and humiliation. Interesting threat, Eleanor. I wonder what the police would find if they investigated everyone involved with the foundation's finances. Her face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. Is that supposed to be a threat? Nobody will believe anything you say now. You're finished in this town. I walked to my car, placing my suitcase in the trunk. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see David still standing in the doorway. The man I'd loved for a decade, now a stranger under his mother's influence. Eleanor had spent years poisoning him against me, and today she finally succeeded. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment. Every suspicious transaction, every falsified document, every secret meeting with her questionable business associates. I had records of all of it. The evidence was backed up in multiple locations, ready to be released at exactly the right moment. As I started the engine, Eleanor appeared at my window, her expensive silk blouse getting soaked in the rain. One more thing, she said, her voice dripping with malice. The board meeting is tomorrow. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. I smiled, thinking about the encrypted email I'd scheduled to send to every board member in exactly 12 hours. Looking forward to it, Eleanor. I'm sure it will be a meeting no one forgets. The next morning, I sat in my hotel room watching my phone explode with notifications. The encrypted email I'd sent to the board members had done exactly what I'd intended, exposed just enough of Eleanor's activities to create panic without revealing my full hand. Emergency board meeting moved to 9 a.m., read the first text from Thomas, the foundation's legal counsel and one of the few people who'd always been kind to me. What have you done? Came David's message moments later. Mom's hysterical. She says you're making up lies. I took a sip of coffee, remembering the night 3 years ago when I first discovered the truth. I'd been working late at the foundation, reviewing donation records, when I stumbled upon a hidden folder in Eleanor's private server. Inside were documents detailing millions in misappropriated funds, all carefully concealed behind a web of fake charities and shell companies. My phone rang. Eleanor's number. I let it go to voicemail, then played her message. You little snake. Her voice trembled with rage. If you think you can destroy what I've built, you're sadly mistaken. I'll bury you. I clicked open my laptop, pulling up the real evidence I gathered. The email to the board had just been a warning shot, proof of some minor financial irregularities. Enough to raise serious concerns, but not enough to send anyone to prison. The real bombshell was still waiting. Thomas called next. Kate, it's chaos here. Eleanor's trying to call an emergency vote to dissolve the board. She's claiming you hacked her computer and planted false evidence. How convenient, I replied. And the external audit I requested. That's the thing, she's fighting it tooth and nail. Says it's a waste of resources during this crisis. I smiled. Interesting. Check your email in 5 minutes. I'm sending you something she really won't want anyone to see. The document I sent Thomas was a detailed record of Eleanor's largest scheme, a fake children's hospital project in South America. She'd raised millions for it, earned glowing press coverage, even hosted elaborate fundraising galas. But the hospital didn't exist. The money had disappeared into a complex network of offshore accounts, while desperate families were left waiting for medical care that would never come. My phone buzzed again. David. We need to talk, his message read. Alone, meet me at our spot. Our spot, the small cafe where we'd had our first date, where he proposed, where we'd spent countless Sunday mornings planning our future. Before Eleanor had poisoned everything. I hesitated, then replied, Okay, 30 minutes. As I gathered my things, another email came through. This one from Agent Sarah Martinez at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I contacted her office weeks ago, building a relationship just in case things went this way. Evidence received, her message read. Moving forward with the investigation. Stay available. The cafe was quiet when I arrived, just a few morning customers lingering over coffee. David sat in our usual corner booth, looking like he hadn't slept. The confident, successful businessman was gone, replaced by someone who seemed lost and uncertain. Explain, he said as I sat down. Please tell me you didn't actually hack into Mom's private servers. I pulled out my laptop. I didn't need to hack anything, David. Your mother gave me access years ago, remember? When she made me head of operations, she just never bothered to revoke it after she started framing me. The Foundation's boardroom felt different as I walked in that afternoon. Gone was the usual atmosphere of polite deference to Eleanor Windsor. Instead, the air crackled with tension as board members huddled in small groups, whispering and glancing nervously at their phones. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, her usual regal posture stiff with barely contained rage. When she saw me enter with David by my side, her eyes widened in disbelief. You dare show your face here, she snarled, standing up. Security. Sit down, Mother, David said quietly. Everyone needs to hear this. Thomas cleared his throat from his position at the other end of the table. Before we begin, I should inform everyone that FBI agents are currently executing search warrants at all Foundation offices and Mrs. Windsor's private residence. The room erupted in chaos. Eleanor's face went from red to white in seconds. This is ridiculous, she shouted over the noise. This woman, she pointed at me, has orchestrated a campaign of lies to destroy this foundation. She's the criminal here. I walked calmly to the podium, connecting my laptop to the presentation screen. Let's talk about crimes, Eleanor. Shall we start with a non-existent children's hospital in South America? Or would you prefer to discuss the shell companies you've been using to launder donation money? The screen filled with documents, bank statements, emails, photographs. 8 years of careful documentation displayed for everyone to see. That's enough. Eleanor lunged for the podium, but David caught her arm. It's over, Mom, he said, his voice breaking. I've seen everything. The fake charities, the offshore accounts, the families you exploited. How could you? Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Everything I did was for this family, to maintain our position, our influence. You think your father's legacy could survive on legitimate charity work alone? The board members watched in stunned silence as Eleanor Windsor, pillar of society and celebrated philanthropist, revealed her true nature. And you, she turned to me, venom in her voice. You self-righteous little nobody. I knew from the moment David brought you home that you'd be trouble. Too smart, too curious, too unwilling to look the other way. I clicked to the next slide. Photos of the families who'd been promised medical care from the non-existent hospital. You're right, Eleanor. I never learned to look the other way. That's why I spent 3 years gathering evidence, building a case, making sure that when the truth came out, it would be undeniable. The boardroom doors opened and Agent Martinez entered with 2 other FBI agents. Mrs. Windsor, we need you to come with us. Eleanor looked around wildly, but found no allies. The board members she'd manipulated for years now stared at her with disgust. David, the son she controlled through emotional manipulation, stood firmly by my side. You'll regret this, she hissed as the agents led her away. All of you. In the aftermath, David and I worked with the FBI to unravel the full extent of Eleanor's schemes. The Foundation underwent a complete restructuring, with new oversight measures and transparency protocols. Most importantly, we established a real medical assistance program for the families Eleanor had betrayed. 6 months later, I stood at the podium again, this time announcing the foundation's legitimate achievements. David sat in the front row, smiling up at me with pride and regret in his eyes. Our marriage had survived, but changed. Stronger now that Eleanor's influence was gone, yet humbled by how close we'd come to losing everything. Eleanor was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The woman who had once ruled over charity galas and society pages now wore prison gray, her empire of lies demolished by the very daughter-in-law she tried to destroy. As I drive home each evening past the foundation's offices where honest work now happens, I often think about Eleanor's words. Everything I did was for this family. She never understood that true family isn't built on lies and manipulation. It's built on trust, integrity, and the courage to stand up for what's right. David and I are expecting our first child, a daughter. Sometimes I wonder if she'll inherit her grandmother's strength and determination. If she does, I'll teach her what Eleanor never learned, that those qualities are best used to build things up, not tear them down. The foundation's newest project breaks ground next week, a real children's hospital, this time in our own city. Eleanor's portrait no longer hangs in the boardroom. Instead, there's a wall of photos showing the families we've actually helped, a daily reminder of why integrity matters more than image. They say the truth always comes out in the end. But sometimes I've learned it needs a little help from someone who's willing to play the long game, to gather evidence piece by piece, and to stand firm when everything seems lost. Eleanor thought she was destroying me that rainy day when she threw me out. Instead, she only succeeded in revealing who she really was, and who I could become when pushed to fight for what's right.